welcome to Modern Home Masterminds with Bespoke Brokers. I'm Shawna Glazier, designated broker and owner.
And I'm Brittainy Williamson, associate broker. Shawna and I are Bespoke Real Estate, but we're also your guides to modern luxury across the entire state of Arizona.
Each week, we chat with masterminds shaping the modern spaces. Do you want to get a behind-the-scenes look at your design build team's processes? Well, open communication and teamwork will lead you to a successful project.
From architects to builders, designers, and more, let's explore the art of modern living together.
All right, listeners. Have you ever spent time and money designing your dream home with an architect only to meet with the builder and find out that it can't be built or it's way over your budget? Well, our guest today, Andy Byrnes, has met with many clients in that exact situation.
Andy is the president and founder of the design build firm, The Construction Zone in Phoenix, Arizona. For over 30 years, his role as lead architect has earned many awards for a range of finely crafted, unique modern architectural projects, ranging from high-end residences, commercial buildings, and restaurants across the country.
All right, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us again.
Cool.
All right, let's dive in. Can you tell us what it's like to meet with clients who have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars only to find out that what is being designed is something can't be built or doesn't meet their budget?
Sure. I mean, that scenario, we as a company try to avoid that when we're the architect for our projects. We have enough experience and pricing knowledge that when someone comes to us with a budget, we can design to that budget. And if we can't, then we don't proceed. I mean, I have a lot of first phone calls and first meetings where someone has an unrealistic expectation of what they can build a home for or any type of building. And we set that expectation from the start. And when you're not a design build firm and you don't have current knowledge of what things cost to build, it's more difficult. So a lot of times architects who don't have that full service are just designing whatever their sort of best and most creative solution is for a property. And often clients are not aware that some of the things that they say cause the cost to be more as well. So I would say pretty much every job that we see where a full set of drawings is done by a really high level architecture firm, the budget is between 20 and 100% more than what the client wants. So what we suggest when we do build for other architects, which we do often, is involve us early. Let's look at it during schematics. Let's look at it before you get too far down the road, and then we can sort of break that news to everybody before all the drawings are done. And now most of the time when we get involved, we very rarely do we see a full set of drawings that we're just giving a price for. We're more engaged in what we would call pre-construction services, and then that team of architect, builder, and owner really is a design build group. What's kind of unique and special about Construction Zone is we do all that ourselves. And then we have a lot of control. It's important that clients tell the truth too. If you tell me you want to build a $3 million house, I'm going to design you a $3 million house. If you really wanted to build a $5 million house, I would design you a different house. So it's important that we get the real answer. Now, people are afraid because they think I'm going to say 3 because it's going to be 6.
That's what everybody thinks is,
and that's
it's going to double.
Right. But
price in the timeline.
Yeah, but with 34 years of being in business, we know how much it's going to cost. We know how long it's going to take. Obviously there's things that happen you can't control, but so I work really hard to tell our clients, tell me what your number needs to be, because it'll really affect how I design the structure, what's the materiality, how it's sited. Oftentimes we're finding property for them. If your budget is X, you might want a flat piece of property. You might want a view, but you can't afford a view. So, there's a lot of things. We're very communicative at the front end. And
I think I'm just going to interrupt you a little bit. I mean, I personally call him the deal killer because he is very honest and he'll meet with clients. And we've worked long enough together that you are honest with them. And sometimes when we're showing property together, I'm like, he's going to be so honest that it's going to kill the deal. But yeah, I do appreciate that about your company.
I think the biggest thing that I feel like we try to do is, well, there's 2 things, under promise and over deliver, and just do what you say you're going to do. And too often architects get caught up on a big idea and they sell this idea as this most important thing to a client, and everyone falls in love with an idea. And then that idea ends up being unaffordable, unbuildable, whatever the case may be. And then there's this disappointment. So I try to convince architects that we do work with that are outside of our company, hold on to your ideas until we chat about, is your idea good and doable?
Yeah. And what is
You
it going
can
to look like
execute it.
cost-wise?
Right.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So do you have any examples of crazy situations where somebody has
I mean, we've
planned
done
something?
a lot of work with a great architecture firm called Lake Flato out of Texas. They're amazing. We've probably done, I don't know, 15 buildings across the country for them, from wineries to homes. And they build an amazing building. And clients often call me and say, hey, I just interviewed Lake Flato. What do you think? I said, they're amazing. And we talk about budget, and often I said, I would not hire Lake Flato to do a house where I'm going to then tell them that my budget is lower than they can do. Because what you love about a Lake Flato house is what you love about it. And it's, unfortunately it's an expensive home. It's very layered. It's very detailed. It's an architecture that costs money to execute. But that's why it's award winning. It's not a value play. It's a work of art,
So there's a project that you did with Lake Flato that.
Yeah, in Mississippi, there was a project where a client owned about 700 acres in south of Ole Miss, and they designed there was a bunch of man-made lakes that we worked on, and there was a boathouse kind of home that was going to be built. And yeah, the drawings that got done by Lake Flato were 3x what the cost, what the client would like to spend. And this client could afford to spend whatever they wanted to spend, but they just didn't want to go there. So between Ted and Carla, who are the architects from Lake Flato, we all got together and said, okay, what do we do? So we kind of, I don't want to say dumbed it down, but we simplified the structure. We simplified the systems. We simplified the materiality. We worked with a local builder to say, how would you do the windows? How would you do this? And we got something built that was much, much, much closer to their budget, and everybody ended up friends and happy. So that's a happy ending. I mean, there's dozens of gigantic, very expensive sets of drawings that are in our archive drawers of buildings that don't get built because they're too
that you just started over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I don't think everybody understands kind of how an architect kind of breaks down their services and what that looks like. So could you describe that to our
Sure.
listeners?
I mean, there's some variations, and like ours is a little more condensed. So there's the traditional architectural services, sort of a schematic design, and then there's design development, and then there's contract documents, and then there's called construction administration. So there's 4 key factors to working through the process. And there's other smaller ones like bidding and negotiating and contractor selection, all those other things. But the really key parts for the client are in that schematic design. Again, you got to be very thorough with your architect and honest about your expectations, because that sets the stage for what's going to get drawn. And that goes all the way through all the consultants. I mean, an architect will have probably somewhere between 5 to 20 consultants helping with electrical, mechanical, plumbing, lighting, acoustics, low voltage, technologies, parking. I mean, there's
a lot of layers.
ADA, there's tons of layers. And each time you meet with one of those consultants, what you say ends up being dollar signs. So if you tell your mechanical mechanical engineer, I want my system to be silent. Well, you've just set a bar. It can be done because it's possible, but you just spent a lot of money, and you really don't need it to be silent. I mean, people think they do because they don't want to be noisy, but there's a big difference between noisy and silent.
It's like saying I want art gallery lighting.
Exactly.
Like that, right?
Exactly.
Tick, tick.
Yeah.
It goes up a little bit.
Yes. So all of those things, I mean, I've gone and lectured at different architecture firms across the country and try to help them understand why does what we draw cost so much? And I'm trying to explain that every line that you draw on those piece of paper, someone's going to put a price to that line. So every line matters. And some architects will do a set of drawings for a house, and it might be 350 drawings. Whereas what we do from a permitting and pricing standpoint is probably a 50 sheet set. Now, eventually we draw it all because we're going to build it. So we do what we call shop drawings. So our process is a little more condensed. Our process is much more schematic design, and then design development and construction documents is kind of blended. we do very detailed pricing along the way, so there's no surprises on the price, and then we draw a ton during construction. I'm not a big fan of drawing things 2 years before drawing the cabinets 2 years before you're buying the cabinets. People change their mind. There's other things, there's other ideas. So we try to slow those things down so they fit into the schedule of a job. Whereas a lot of architects they draw every single thing that they think will ever be done, because the fear as an architect is, if I don't draw it, some dumb contractor is going to fuck it up, And that's true, unless you have a contractor who won't, So, and there's a huge trust for architects to work with a builder and not draw everything. Now the problem is, a lot of young architects don't honestly know how to draw a building that they've never built. It takes a lot of experience, and I don't think you can be an unbelievably talented architect without having dirty feet and dirty hands occasionally.
That's good. Good advice. I think during our pre-call, you mentioned that there's different architectural stages that you go through with a client. Could you maybe explain a little bit about those stages to our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, the schematic design phase is when the architect works with you to define your program. Like what rooms do you want in your building, in your home? How big are they? Do you want a gym? Do you want a sauna? You try to identify all the puzzle pieces.
And does that start after you've already walked the property with them, the site?
Yeah, I mean, typically while that's happening, there's also a site analysis happening. So we and most architects have sort of a site analysis process and a programming process. And site analysis is like, what are the good views? What are the bad views? What's the access? Where's the wind? Where's the water? What's the sun doing? Very important in our desert. So that site analysis and the programming analysis then basically defines the job. And then what we do as a business, whether we're doing design build or working with another architect, we take those diagrams, those room sizes, and then we say, okay, well, a primary bathroom is going to be, it's an expensive space. So that might be $2,000 a square foot to $2,500 a square foot, because it's full of plumbing and fancy fixtures and fancy materials. Whereas a living room space might be, 800 square feet, and that might only be $400 to $700 a square foot, because it's just a big room,
Depending on the built-in.
So we try to get a budget range based on just the bubble diagram or the program, and we'll do the same thing with site. So if there's a site with a tremendous amount of excavation, we'll look at that and say, well, do we think we can balance that site? In other words, I think when you're building on the hillside, good architecture looks at balancing the material that you dig. So if you're making a big cut on the back of the site, you're putting some fill on the front and you're trying to balance that dirt. Now, sometimes you can't do that. So, export, import, those are all very expensive things. And we try to think about that right at the beginning. Because if a job has $1 million worth of excavation work, boy, that's a number that needs to be thought about in the overall budget. Because if you have a flat site with $60,000 worth of excavation work, there's a lot more room for fancy tile.
Yeah. I think it's so important. You can just hear how much your knowledge is coming through as far as what things cost. And I can imagine that's very important to your clients to know along the way, as opposed to this idea of having everything planned out and then getting a bid for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Occasionally we're just the architect, especially for smaller projects out of state. So we have a couple of jobs in California where we're acting just as architects. So I've interviewed and teamed up with other builders, and it is interesting how vague their pricing is. And I'm like, well, and I pretty much spoon feed them what the real scope is and say, give me a number for every one of these lines. Here's 250 lines in an outline. And then I just get this weird, 3 number thing. Is all this included? So it's an interesting process. We have a very thorough process where every single piece of the puzzle is itemized and looked at cost and what the spec difference, how it affects cost. It's just no fun. It's no fun to draw everything and then be over budget.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what makes Construction Zone stand out too, along with some of the other things that you're doing, is you're actually fabricating some windows and doors and things like that. So if you can tell our listeners.
Yeah, we self-perform a lot of the architectural finishes. So if it's made of steel or metal or glass or wood. So cabinets, doors, windows, gates, railings, stairs, wall finishes, anything that's made of those materials, we do ourselves. And we can also do more. So by having a crew, when I say, okay, that staircase is made of this, this, and this, and it's going to cost $30,000. Well, then I know that's my budget. So I'm going to go draw a $30,000 stair. Whereas a funny story-ish is we were doing a huge house for a really amazing firm called Boland Swinski Jackson. Peter Boland, one of the greatest architects in American history, did a lot of the original Apple stores, and great guy. And huge firm. They were doing a crazy house in Paradise Valley. And we had a budget for like a $10,000 big gate to this mechanical yard. And some young architect did all these drawings and blah, blah, and drew this crazy gate during construction, and sent a bill to the owner's rep for like $7,400 to draw the gate. And the gate only was supposed to cost $10,000. And so, and the gate ended up costing like $18,000. So the owner's rep said, is this normal? And I was like, well, sorta. I mean, tell that kid to stop drawing when he doesn't know what to draw, So what we tend to do is most architects that we do multiple jobs with, like a lot of your visitors at the podcast, like Wendell and Eddie and other folks like that, we'll look at each other and say, okay, this gate's going to be kind of made like this, kind of made like that. Here's a budget for it. We'll figure it out later when we know where we're at, but we're all going to agree that that's a $10,000 gate.
You're all on the same page.
Yes. And we do what's called shop drawings. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge part of construction zones work, where we draw what our intent is. Well, we take the architect's intent or our own intent, and then we draw a fabrication drawing, knowing what the budget is. And then we present it to everybody so they can look at it. And then there could be minor modifications, as opposed to, someone drawing something with no thought about where the cost might be.
So do you do that when you work with other architects as well?
Yes. So we're always telling architects, like, hey, you can draw less because we're going to draw it back at you. Because everything that an owner can see when it's done, if you can see it or touch it, you're going to sign your name to a drawing that says, I think I understand what I'm buying. Here's what it's made of. Here's what it looks like. Nowadays with renderings, we can, get pretty photoreal of what someone's going to get before they buy it.
Yeah, we've had listings of yours that people think the renderings are already done.
Still, yeah. How long until this one is completed?
Yeah.
Because they think it's renderings and it's actual.
Or vice versa.
Yeah. They look so good.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have some slideshows of your work. I'd love to dive in, and hopefully our listeners can tune in and view some of these projects or look on your website as well. But this first one gets so much attention online, and you call it the barn. You want to walk us through that one? Yeah.
So the house that I built for myself back in like 1996, we had a barn, which was these 5 concrete walls with a roof that horses lived in. Well, once the horses were set out to pasture, I changed it into a guest house. And it was just a really interesting remodel and interesting use of an existing structure. And yeah, I did win a bunch of cool AIA awards back then. And that building right there is probably 20 plus years old. And what I like about it is, compared to even some of the newer photos, is it's really hard to tell what decade our work was made. In fact, when Shawna sold this house, the real estate folks were like, so when did you finish? And I was like, 1997.
Well, it was a common question of agents when I was showing it. They're like, why are you moving? It looks brand new. And I'm like, it's 20 years old.
Yeah. So,
but you're right. That is a common theme when something is executed this well.
Yeah, and I think clients are also, when they hire architects, they're very cautious of having a project that is very dated. And I don't mean dated like old or new, but just a time, whereas I think this kind of desert modern architecture that we try to do has been going on since Al Beadle. Now, I think it's elevated, and the fit and the finish and the quality of what we can do now is much higher, and people let us spend a lot more money.
Yes, and you're definitely putting more storage in your homes than
There's
Al Beadle
did. Yeah, more height, a little more height, a little more storage.
Yes. But it is. I mean, that's why we love modern architecture, because it does kind of transcend time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is
This
another
McClendon.
Yeah, McClendon residence. Great project for, at the time, a family with grown children, and I think one grandchild. And then just about 3 years ago, we actually, in the front left of the photo, you can see there's another guest building that used to be guest parking. The right of the slide is the original Casita guest house, 2-bedroom. We added another one because I think now they have 13 grandkids.
Oh my goodness.
So the family has grown, and they wanted a resort house that they can just have their family and party. Like the next slide, I think, shows the courtyard space, and really great, fun project.
Yeah. Let's keep sliding through the photos.
Yeah, this is a smaller private residence for someone that was downsizing up in Estancia on the golf course, and I just love the simple form, and it looks up to Pinnacle Peak. It's next to a really great Eddie Jones house that we did 20 years ago, the Logan residence. So really nice to have these two very modern homes kind of talking to each other.
And it just blends so well into the desert landscape there.
Yeah, great project.
Where is this?
This one's called Upper Ridge, which if you follow these two, you probably have seen lots of this one, but great project, great client. Super tough site, but beautiful piece of modern architecture. A lot of influences back from my days getting to work with Al Beadle and these kind of steel and glass pavilions that are floating above the desert.
And this one's between two mountain peaks. It's amazing.
It has north and south views. It's special. A lot of client input. The client had the stone cladding and the tile floors picked out years before we were done. And then this is a project that finished last year. We call it Stone Canyon, which is a really great architectural design build project. We just had a great time, great client. That's a bridge over a wash, really complicated site. And you'll see more of that to come. That's the patio space.
And we had this one on the Desert Modern Architecture Tour,
yes.
well as the first one.
Yeah.
And have you submitted that one for awards?
We're working on that now.
Yeah.
And this is a house that is up on Camelback Mountain on the north face. Just really a super tight little building envelope on a larger site, and just again another kind of custom steel and glass doors, the custom woodworking. Again, a lot of construction zone, elbow grease in that one.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing these with us.
Yeah.
Lots of memories. All right, we want to do a little rapid fire with you. So one answer or one word or one sentence answers.
Okay.
Do you want? Okay, I'll go first. All right, so you ready? We changed them from the last time, so you don't know what they are. Maybe we haven't. What architects or architect have inspired your architecture journey?
Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones, that's funny.
Jones, he's a good one.
He's the most talked about on this podcast.
He really is. What would you be doing if you weren't an architect?
I'd be a gym teacher.
Really?
I don't know. That was my original plan. I was like, no, I mean, that sort of a joke, but that was kind of like, I thought I'd clean pools and be a gym teacher. But I've always been in construction. I've always done, when I was in high school, I had a landscaping company. When I was in college, I had a painting company. I've always had a little construction business. I started working construction in college, and I've always wanted to build things. So I never really wasn't on a path to do something, I think, construction related. The architecture part was something that I've evolved through college, and then kind of clicked, and then just met such great people here back in early 90s, again, like Al Beadle and Rich Fairborn, and another architect named Bud Fonts and Elon Baldinger and Eddie Jones and Wendell Burnett and Rick Joy and all these guys that I met, and I've built for almost all of them. So I've had this unique opportunity to learn from all these people.
So if it doesn't work out, you can still be a gym teacher, probably.
I think I'll just do nothing. I'm doing a little bit of painting.
Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite piece of architecture?
Barcelona Pavilion.
Yep.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received in life or business?
Best piece of advice.
He's probably not following it right now. Is why he's struggling.
Do what you say you're going to do.
That's a good one.
All right. Cycling with your wife in Phoenix or playing golf in Flagstaff with your friends? I'm kidding. We can edit that out.
Both.
Okay.
Cycling in Flagstaff with my wife would be fun.
Is marriage a convenience or a commitment?
We're going to have to edit this whole thing.
I don't know. It's a pain in the ass, is what it is.
All right. Last question. Who's your favorite realtor?
Shawna Glazier.
Right. For now.
Good answer.
Safe answer.
Safe answer.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining us on our show. We are going to link all of your contact information in our show notes. But if you want to, if you could tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, I think the easiest way is on our website is czphx.com. And if someone wants to email us, there's an info@czphx, which is the email address for kind of general questions.
And your Instagram is also CZPHX.
It is.
Correct. And
Yes.
that is awesome as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Check out the Instagram. Follow them. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you.
All right. That's it for today's episode of Modern Home Masterminds. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, rate, and subscribe.
Thanks so much to our guest for sharing his insights and to you for learning about everything modern with us.
If you're ready to take the next step in your real estate journey, please reach out to us at Bespoke Real Estate. And until next time, keep living, loving everything modern.